Alright, welcome back to the Make or Break Society. In this one we're going to be doing a full recap on my Sega Game Gear. As you can see from this one, I'm just going to use my power back that I upgraded in a previous video. I'll leave links in the description and a card up here, so you can check that one out if you'd like. So this one's got, it's not displaying out and lines on the screen. This could be a cat problem. This could also just be a bad connection on the display. So we're going to recap it and we'll reflow the solder. For this process, you're going to need a screwdriver, a Phillips number 1 bit. I'm using this adapter to my iFixit kit so I can actually get in the deeper sockets. You'll need something that can go nice and deep. And you're also going to need a 4.5mm game bit driver. You're going to need capacitors. Most of my capacitance and voltages are pretty close to what the Game Gear has, but there is a little bit of a buffer zone. I'll put a list up on the screen as well in the description of the exact caps you need, and as we go through and replace them, I'll tell you which caps will be okay if you don't have that exact cap. Now, I won't be doing a detailed disassembly of this one. I have another video, another card here. I have another video with the full disassembly as well as a shell cleaning that I did on this one previously. So for the full disassembly, take a look at that video. I'll leave a link in the description as well as that card. And I did forget to mention a couple of other things you're going to want for this, and they're really important. So you're going to want some flux. You're going to need a soldering iron. You don't need, but it may be helpful to have some desolder braid, a pair of tweezers, and some solder. Without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so the first step for me is to do an inspection. So I kind of want to see if I'm crazy, if we have some leaking caps in here, and especially in the case of these two, I want to see if the caps are actually problematic. I doubt the ones in the power board are. They're very resilient caps, but we'll see. If they're not bad and they don't look like they're going bad, I'm going to leave them alone. The audio board ones I might replace regardless. They can be touchy. Both the audio and the power boards both look good. Like I said, I'm going to replace the audio board anyways. I am going to leave the power board alone. More importantly, on this one, I'm replacing all of these ones regardless. These ones have a history of going bad. But it looks like we've only got 2 that are actively bad. That's these 2 here. You can see that there's shading on that one and this one, and not in the microscope. They actually have like moisture at the bottom of them, so these caps are actually like leaking. That cap also looks okay, and those ones it's hard to tell, but those 2 for sure are bad. So we're going to replace them all. First step here, we're going to desolder all of the capacitors on the board. First, I'm going to apply flux to all of the capacitors. Now we just heat them up and pull them off. There, that's all the caps gone now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up the gluey crap on both of these ones so I can better access the pins. And then I'm going to add a dab of solder to all of the connection points here to make it so our new caps go on a little bit easier. Now here, on this one, you can see that I've got a bad pad there. So to fix that, I'm going to put a little bit of flux on the board, and I'm going to grab my desolder braid. Hopefully we can clean it up. And you can see that I was able to clean it up a bit and expose some of the pad that's there. And that should be enough for me to solder to. Here, that's all of our pads. There's a little bit of searing on the board, but most of that is actually just the flux that burnt. So once we get our new capacitors on there, we'll take some ISO and we'll clean up all this flux that's left over. Alright, first up is C1, which is 33 UF, 6.3 volts, and we're going to be replacing it with 47 and 16 volts. Next, we're going to solder C4, which is a 10 UF, 16 volt. And I've got 10 UF, 16 volts, so we'll be replacing it with exact. Next, we're going to be doing C54. C54 is a 0.47 UF 50 volt capacitor. We'll be using a 1 UF 50 volt capacitor for it. C55 is also a 0.47 UF 50 volt, so we'll be using a 1 UF 50 volt capacitor. Next we're going to be doing C45. This is a 4.7 UF 35 volt capacitor, and I've got a 4.7 UF 50 volt capacitor that I'll be putting in. Next is C43. C43 is a 22 UF capacitor at 6.3 volts. I have 22 UF at 16 volts, so we'll be using that. Next we're going to do C47. This is a 68 UF capacitor at 6.3 volts. We will be using a 100 UF capacitor at 16 volts. Next is C49. This is 100 UF at 4 volts. So I will be using 100 UF at 16 volts. Now for the last one on this side of this board, it is C68. C68 is 100 UF at 6.3 volts. So again, I'll be using 100 UF at 100 volts. First up on this side of the board is C11. C11 is a 10 UF cap at 16 volts, and I've got exactly that. Sorry, the next up was C42, which I forgot to hit record for. It was a 10 UF 16 volt, and I have that one. That one goes here. That's this cap. And then the last one here, which is C14. So C14 is also 10 UF 16 volts. And we'll put that one in. Alright, that's it. So the next thing to do is to go through, double check your capacitor numbers and the values that you put on, and then we'll test it. Perfect. All right, let's move on to the audio board. Okay, so same with the main board. I'm going to remove all 5 capacitors, and then we'll resolder the new ones on. Okay, now I'm going to touch up some of the solder pads here, and we'll start resoldering. Okay, so there's only 2 different types of capacitors on here. C1, 2, and 3 are all 100 UF and 6.3 volts, so we'll be using 100 UF and 16 volts. And then C5 and 7 are 47 UF 4 volts, and we'll be using 47 UF 16 volts. So let's do C1, 2, and 3 first. Now with those three done, let's do our last two. C5 and C7, the 47 UF 4 volt, which we're doing 47 UF 16 volt. Alright, that's all done. The audio board's kind of a pain to test outside of fully assembling it, so that's what we're going to do next. Let's put it all back together. Okay, so that's how to recap a Sega Game Gear. We took care of recapping the main board as well as the audio board. We didn't do the power board because there was nothing wrong with it. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and until next time, it doesn't matter if you make or break, as long as you're having fun.